Great. Okay, so thanks for attending our second Science and Technical Committee of the year. We're trying out a different kind of format this year where we'll have kind of quarterly all hands meetings that will feature guest speakers or a panel and then more broad estuary program updates. So that's what's on the schedule for March's meeting. But today we're talking about a couple of the different grants we've got. Hello. Hey. All right, so I think we have a couple of new faces, so maybe we'll go around, and we have actually quite a fair number of people in the room, so I just want to go around quickly, just name in the room we'll start, and then folks online if you just want to come up and say your name quickly. So I'm Ryan, the estuary scientist for the program, and I'll pass it to Jessica.
I'm Jessica Graham, the executive director of the program.
I'm Gina with Marine Fisheries Management, FWC.
Mike McManus, I'm an ecologist with the US EPA Office of Research and Development.
I am Chantel Weber, Coastal Resource Coordinator, Butte County.
I'm Mark Hyman. I'm simply a science sort. Daryl Boudreau, Northwest Florida Water Management District.
Lisa Wright, test strip.
I'm Liz, and I'm the research scientist for the program.
All right, online, Jim.
I'm Jim Muller, the Restore Act coordinator for Bay County for 3 more days.
Brett.
Hello, Brett Connell with True Environmental Solutions. Happy to actually be able to make it today. So
yeah,
good to see you.
Thank you. Becca.
Hey, sorry guys, microphone issues. Becca Hatchell, FWC MESS, and I will be your MESS rep for the next 2 weeks, actually.
Gary.
Did you say Carrie? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Carrie Jones. I'm with the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, Division of Aquaculture.
India.
Hello, Dewberry Engineering, environmental scientist.
John Brucker.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm John Brucker. I'm the Central Panhandle Aquatic Preserves Manager. So that means I manage the St. Joseph Bay and St. Andrews Aquatic Preserves.
Josh Neese. I'll come back to you, Josh. Katie Conchar.
Good afternoon, Katie Conchar, the Nature Conservancy Gulf of Mexico program.
Lillian Mulligan.
Hi, I'm Lillian. I'm a civil engineer for the city of Panama City Beach.
Lisa.
Lisa Pratt, retired biogeochemist, Indiana University and NASA.
Molly Allen.
Hi everybody, it's me, Molly from Lowwater Lake. I'm a Florida Lake Watch volunteer for the last 13 years and live on a remnants of an old coastal dune lake right in the heart of Panama City Beach, the best place to be.
Thank you. Matt Davis.
I'm Matt Davis, a biologist with Florida Fish and Wildlife.
Norm. Norm, if you're speaking, you're still on mute. I'll jump back to you.
Hi, I'm back.
Okay.
So Norm Capra, having to make do. I had a computer crash last week and I was getting my iPad set up. Anyway, Bay County Audubon and Lake Powell Community Alliance, Lake Watch volunteer for, I guess almost 8 years now.
Thank you. Janelle.
Sorry, I didn't have sound at the beginning of the meeting, so if you call my name before, I apologize. Janelle Johnson, FWC biologist in East Point.
And then Christina?
Yeah. Hey, I'm Christina Cantrell. I'm with St. Andrew Baywatch.
Thank you. All right, I think I got everyone. So thanks for doing that. Just feel like we have some new faces and faces that haven't been able to join in a while. So just wanted to loop us all in. So we'll go ahead and get started. With kind of touching on a couple of grants we have today. So the Sea Stars project, kind of referred to as FLARESEP or Living Shorelines Effectiveness, an FDACS grant that we just learned we received, and then kind of just touching back onto the state of the watershed. I put together kind of a spreadsheet and I just wanted to send it out to you in case you have thoughts and ideas on data sources or databases that we can pull the data for the metrics that we identified. And then we'll wrap up with some group announcements. All right, so I wanted to kind of just give an overview of the Sea Stars project. Again, this is funded by the Florida Restore Act Center of Excellence program. And we worked with a bunch of partners to submit this. And so we haven't really talked about what this grant is in quite some time, really. So just going to give you a brief overview, and then we've put together kind of a sampling standard operating procedure that we intend to do for the data collection for this, and happy to take some comments and feedback on the methods our team has kind of worked through. All right, so this project is actually covering from Escambia to Bay County, working with our estuary program, Pensacola and Perdido Bay's estuary program, Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance, Choctawhatchee Bay Estuary Program, St. Andrew Baywatch, and then all the other partners listed below. And the goal is really to kind of evaluate the effectiveness of living shoreline restoration projects across these 3 estuaries. So we've been kind of identified 10 different sites per estuary. And then the second goal on top of this is to then kind of use this new data that we collect to quantify the provision of locally relevant ecosystem services. And we really want to do this to be able to better communicate with stakeholders and the general public about the benefits of living shorelines, why maybe they should consider installing them, and things like that. So project timeline, we've definitely touched on and talked about this grant before. It kicked off in May 2023. We had a grant executed in July, and then we hired Liz, who is our research scientist / technician for this project. She'll be leading all of the field work. And so we were able to finally get her hired and on board in the fall. We're also hiring a postdoctoral researcher for this grant, and we are going through that process right now. So hopefully we'll have someone on board for the postdoc by summer. And our big exciting news is that our quarterly field sampling is supposed to be beginning this quarter, hopefully in March. So we're really trying to get out in the field and collect some data, get muddy, so we can feel like biologists again. But that's just a little bit about the overview, kind of the timeline of the project a little bit. And what I really wanted to spend today on is just kind of walking you through the different aspects that we've been working on, and then I'll stop and let you ask all the questions you want. So we've got part of this work is kind of acquiring all of the existing monitoring data that's been done on living shorelines in these different estuaries. This is really where the postdoc comes into play, and so we're very excited for them to come on board once that process is all done. And so that's one thing we're working on. So we've worked with DEP a little bit to acquire some of the data for a lot of the Pensacola sites. Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance has shared all of their monitoring data with us as well. And so this postdoc has a huge job in kind of synthesizing all of that data. Some of that data still needs to be entered from various different partners. A lot of kind of cleaning, standardizing across the different folks collecting data, the different amount of time data's been collected and things like that. So they have quite a big job ahead of them, but I think it will lend itself to really cool research papers coming out of that, and the postdoc can kind of be able to come up with cool stories from just that giant data set. And then the other thing that we are gearing up to do is sample 10 sites in each estuary. So again, kind of the leaders of this sampling for St. Andrews Bay will be Baywatch and our program. In Choctawhatchee Bay, CBA will lead that with Liz, kind of tagging along and being the consistent sampler throughout all of these estuaries. And then in Pensacola Bay, Pensacola and Perdido Bays will help lead that sampling as well. So we've kind of have everything ready to go for data collection and are just kind of waiting to get out in the field. Been ordering a lot of stuff, kind of did a practice run of what we're gonna sample. And these are kind of the main metrics that we want to collect data on. So shoreline protection, that'll be a mix of in-field measurements of shoreline change, but a lot of GIS work as well with imagery. And so that's one of the metrics. Then we've got habitat creation. So we'll be monitoring stem densities, species cover, oyster densities, oyster shell heights as well. And then some fish populations information. So we'll be seining and dropping minnow traps as well. And then finally, looking at biogeochemical cycling at these sites. So this one's has a little bit different as far as frequency for the different metrics. So we'll be collecting soil every quarter, but only in the summer will we be measuring potential denitrification. And that's really just because of funding and the logistics of getting those samples to the lab to get them processed. But we're really excited to add that piece of the puzzle into this. And so we've got a field sampling standard operating procedure that Liz has been working really hard on. We went out, kind of the key project team members went out and did kind of a practice run. We adjusted them just this past Monday. And so I sent out this morning kind of our standing working SOP for the project, and just wanted to get some feedback on thoughts on that. We identified the different, and I'll pull it up right now, but certainly don't need you to be reviewing this in the meeting, but feel free to send emails afterwards as far as any methods or things that you think we should consider adding in or adjusting. But we have kind of reviewed a lot of the standard sort of living shoreline methods that are out there. Thankfully, lots of people sent me the Tampa Bay SOP that had just come out maybe last month, at the end of last month. So we were able to kind of adjust some things to kind of match up with that as well. And so I'll stop talking now, and please feel free to ask any questions about that.
So am I understanding correctly, there's going to be synthesizing of the monitoring data that has already occurred, and there's going to be you all sampling, getting what I imagine to be similar data to what's been collected in the past and somehow mesh that together?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, getting similar data that's been done in the past plus additional, because what we are trying to do is get that to like an ecosystem service perspective. So you need additional stuff than your like tier 1 sampling.
Okay.
And for the ecosystem services work, we'll be partnering with the Gulf Ecosystem Measurement and Modeling Division of the Office of Research and Development at EPA. They've got a couple of great ecosystem service folks there that are going to help us kind of with that process. And then kind of further later in the grant period. It's a 3-year grant, so the results will also kind of be used to use Invest natural capital accounting software with Julie at FSU Tallahassee. I don't remember the college that she's in, but right.
Are those EPA folks at Sabine Island or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Susan Yee.
What's the imagery that you'll be using for the shoreline?
So we started pulling from there, so we've been using kind of the USGS database that exists of historic imagery, kind of looking at Google Earth imagery as well, kind of anything that we can get our hands on that is a clear image that we can go back as far in time as we can.
How do you convert those images into, like, what's your reference point to?
Yeah, that's a great
pretty
point.
much, yeah.
So there is a program that some researchers have developed. It's called, I don't remember what it is fully spelled out, but the acronym is FDACS.
Oh, that was, sorry.
Full of jokes today, too.
Yeah. Let's de-sass Daryl.
Yeah. But there's already like a program that you can run through ArcGIS that will kind of quantify the shoreline change for you. So if you have the points of where the living shoreline is, then you can, import all of that. So that's one program that exists.
And is it? So, like, I'm trying to think of like satellite versus drone, which is gonna be different heights. Is
Yeah.
this application able to factor all of that in?
I don't know if the DSATS program is only for like aerial landscape, like that sort of imagery, or if it's drone. So I will have to look into that if you can use both.
I think it's satellite.
But I think it is based on satellite, because it's a slightly older program that's been done, so I would imagine it's
Okay.
mostly for satellite.
Well, if you find out if it's drone and there's any places you need, just let me know.
Thank you.
So with this being a project to evaluate effectiveness, is the assumption that over time, things are getting better? So that the idea is that the older living shorelines are where you're gonna see the biggest improvements, or?
Kind of the working hypothesis, but I think part of the nice thing about this is we kind of intended to be having sites that are of different ages and across different estuaries, so we can kind of look at that. When do we start to realize some of the benefits that we talk about living shorelines providing, so that we can better talk to a homeowner about putting in, like, are you gonna start to see fish immediately, or does it take maybe 2 or 3 years?
The whole intent of this is to be able to better communicate the benefits of living shorelines to increase adoption. And so a lot of the times people have erosion and they want a now solution. So we need to be able to more educatedly say, well, it's going to take 6 months, or it's going to take 1 month, or however that is, to stop that erosion. Because what we find a lot of the times is they want that immediate result. We can't tell them when it's gonna happen, so then they put a seawall in, because that is their immediate result.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to better understand that temporal return on investment as well as spatial return on investment, and how consistent that is across the different estuaries.
Well, and so among the different estuaries with these different shorelines, have they been following a common procedure for installing them, or they're all idiosyncratic?
They're different. They're different methods, different materials, and so there is it's messy data.
But I think you can, there are, and a lot of that variance, I think, is scale based.
Yeah.
So like homeowners, typically it's bag shell type, or well, not as much limestone at the homeowner, I don't think. Bag shell or the core logs, but then when you get to larger, like Project Green Shores, where that's limestone and where you're be having thousands of feet, versus 50 to 100 feet. So I think the different scales, because the larger projects are limestone pretty much now at this point. We've tried concrete, limestone, and then the fossilized or shell. And I think what they're finding is if it's hard, it's good. But concrete, they each have their own
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
personalities.
John talked about granite in Apalachicola, maybe it was, can't remember, I may be inserting that, but John.
Yeah, you're right. We used larger pieces of granite in our marine mattresses on our living shoreline, but a lot of the other work done in and around Appalach is limestone rock material. They're moving away from a lot of the bagged oyster shell stuff.
Are you all hoping to make general statements about living shorelines in general? And or are you also looking into the different kinds of living shorelines so you can also make recommendations on, or say this kind can produce more of this, you know, depending what it is?
Yeah, I think it's gonna depend on the data.
Yeah.
You know, I think it'd be great if we could have recommendations of types of living shoreline based on site-specific characteristics, because the other aspect of this is that Pensacola, Perdido, and Choctawhatchee both have suitability assessments completed for living shorelines in their bays, and we're just waiting for the money to funnel to us, so that we've been selected for that. And so having this data set on top of that information could help provide another layer of information to help maybe get there. But we did not promise that because the data is messy, and it's really gonna depend on what type of, how much existing data can be gathered in order to use that for projection.
Yeah, to parse it.
Yeah.
I understand.
On the carbon and nitrogen monitoring, is that gonna feed into like blue carbon conversations?
I mean, it could, that's not necessarily where we're intending to necessarily take it, but if we collect the data, that
Yeah.
can be a story.
No, that's a good thing, because I think that's, you know, on the horizon, or maybe not, I don't know when we'll adopt something like that, but there are other areas that have adopted carbon trading and those types of things. So having that data for our systems is going to be really good to have that. So. And then I think the same is on the nitrogen side, because water quality is, you know, we're able to document that, because right now we know it's a good thing, but having more data on terms of how much is being taken up is going to be very helpful from a water quality implementation plan perspective.
Yeah. And I'm excited about the denitrification measurements. I wish we could do them more, but.
Yeah. We had a researcher from Tallahassee that wanted to also integrate looking at
the
microbes, yeah, along with the denitrification, which was exciting, but it didn't get selected for funding, so we're gonna find another way to do it, hopefully, but it's completely dependent on that researcher because she's got the expertise and there's no way. Nope.
Like an example for that, but
yeah,
beyond that.
Yeah.
Any other questions online? Okay. So the next grant I just wanted to touch base on is one we just found out we received, and so we proposed to do a grant through FDACS from their urban forestry call that they put out right before the holidays. And so it is titled Strategically Reforesting Bay County Through Assessing Stormwater Potential and Existing Infrastructure. So it is sort of more of a planning grant, and what we're doing is kind of synthesizing the municipal data across boundaries and verifying stormwater outfall locations, categorizing catchments based on stormwater potential. This will ideally be working with an FSU Panama City engineering student to do this work. And then the big thing is kind of based on that information, identifying priority public areas for tree planting. So the call was really interested in how to better plan with stormwater and using tree plantings to mitigate those stormwater impacts.
So we kind of catered what we want
With
what they want.
So, yeah, it's a little,
It's a balance.
yeah, to balance. And then we will provide a recommendation on these tree planting locations based on that iTree analysis per municipality in Bay County, and then work with hopefully some of our partners to identify the best native species, tree species to plant in these areas. Jim?
Yeah, are you integrating this in any way with the vulnerability assessments that are being done now with FSU or the Bay County watershed? I mean, tree loss is a big part of that as well as flooding.
It likely won't be with the vulnerability assessment, just based on the timeline of completion for each of these projects, but it could go into the compound influx study if that went through, which I'm not for sure on whether or not that went through, but it's a little bit of a preliminary synthesizing the data. It's not going to get as in-depth as we wanted to get just based on the available budget, but it would be great to be able to get it integrated into the compounding flood study, but I don't see it happening with the vulnerability.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, yeah, India, because we've just received it, we don't even have, it's not even at FSU, it's not active yet, so we haven't really started working on it.
It was one of those grants that we put in for, and we're kind of okay not getting because it's only like $56,000.
Yeah.
And then we got it, and we're like, uh-oh. So we, and this is what was proposed, but yeah, we still don't have the active agreement yet. But if you have ideas or, insight or anything like that, let us know, because we can definitely incorporate that into the planning.
And then Molly, I saw your question, a focus on wetland, upland, et cetera. Yeah, it'll be like all municipal, the watershed, so the lands in general. And the tree planting will really focus on where we know there's available areas for planting, and it has to be in public spaces, so not private homeowner residences.
So Craig Myrtle's gonna take like center.
No. FDP mitigation. No, it means more like publicly accessible areas, so parks and things like that, rather than a personal residence.
I don't know where the FDEP mitigation area and which mitigation that's referring to. If it's in the back beach area. But it'll all depend on what the stormwater, because it's definitely to offset stormwater.
Yeah.
So if there's like Lynn Haven has a lot of stormwater that's generated with a few public areas that you could plan to help offset that generation of stormwater. Yeah, anything that's public. Yep.
Public or semi-public? I was thinking of some of the Bay County Conservancy land.
Yeah, that would count.
Yeah, that counts.
It just can't be private ownership. Yeah.
Jen?
So this isn't really doing any planting. This is just identifying areas to be planted.
Correct, yeah, this is just identifying the areas to plant.
And so there's a plan to maybe do follow up with Forest Service on additional money that comes later for planting and stuff like that.
Well, that and the municipalities, and this was also written into our big NOAA grant, that we actually asked for $30,000 per year for tree and native planting. So this would help to inform that as like a technical leverage. So I think there's a lot of opportunity of how to coordinate the results and to actually get the plantings done.
Okay, thanks.
Would you be interacting, or is it too late to interact with the Robinson Bayou watershed?
I don't think it's too late. I think that goes along with the conservancy folks, because I know they're looking into acquisition. And so I think there's opportunity for that, but again, it'll all be like stormwater.
That is.
Yeah,
that's just-
yeah.
And that's a big priority for USDA, that they've got a campaign. We've talked about that, stumping for, Daryl's words, stumping for sturgeon, trees for turtles.
Right.
And so what they're focused on is, instead of trying to address stormwater at the back end, is try to bring more trees, natural areas on the front end to stop the generation of stormwater. And doing that through bringing trees and other natural areas instead of concrete where possible, so you're generating less. So theoretically, with the next round of Restore coming out, if they keep that priority for Restore Pot 2, those conversations are starting to happen. So when is this going to be?
We have 18 months.
Yeah.
Starting in January last year.
But this is the one you don't have the money, right?
Oh yeah, we have like 8 of them that we don't have money for.
Yeah, well, I just meant, but
Add it up.
when do you think you'll have?
The agreement is
recommendations?
in-house. I think when we think we'll have recommendations.
Yeah,
Next year. Yeah.
next year?
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's good, because we can start having the conversations with them now and just say they're working right now with the science to identify good locations, and then talk to them about the money to implement. So it's perfect.
And the municipalities are all about trees and planting trees, and so I think it'll be a great case study for, the ESTRI program being able to synthesize things together and provide, useful recommendations.
Any other questions online? I think I got all of them in the chat. Tree, but
Oh, yeah.
this is iTree. This is the program we'll likely use to prioritize, identify where to plant trees to mitigate stormwater. It's a very useful, pretty easy to use program, and you can we can also pull their methods out and do it outside of it too, if needed. Yeah. All right, then the last grant I wanted to touch back on, which we've talked a lot about, so I don't want to spend too much time on, because I'm sure you guys are sick of it at this point. But for State of the Watershed, we kind of talked about, apparently I didn't put in my screenshot, but we kind of got feedback on what the framework, what the report card style will look like, and the indicators and metrics. We started talking a little bit about, in previous conversations, about where the data will be coming from for the different indicators. So I put together a spreadsheet that I sent out in email. And so if you have time and would like to fill that out and add in data sources that might be useful for those different metrics and the databases or the data contact, that would be great. But because we're having just some SharePoint issues, I just sent it via email, so you can just send it back to me via email if you have anything you want to add. Jim?
Yeah, Matt Deitch did the Panhandle bibliography, and several years ago, pulling together, asked for information from each watershed. And so if you have access to that and have looked at that, because there was a lot of different sources pulled together that address a lot of these things that you're talking about for that. So I just say, make sure to look at what his product was.
Okay.
It's on my Teams.
It is, okay.
Maybe you found that one.
Oh,
Yeah, that's right. Yes, we do have access to that.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely take a look.
All right, okay, so next meeting will be our first sort of annual quarterly meeting, and March is Seagrass Awareness Month. So we are going to have a seagrass panel featuring some of the folks that participate in these calls regularly. And then some other folks that are doing research on seagrass in our watershed. So please mark your calendar for that. I think all of the presenters will be virtual, so your choice if you want to still come in. We'll still have it hybrid format, but all of the presenters will be virtual. But yeah, so that'll be exciting, kind of wanting to focus on the different restoration and research efforts going on in the watershed. So each will give about a 5 to 10 minute spiel about the work that they're doing. And then we'll kind of have some predetermined questions to have some panel discussion. And then hopefully we will have a pretty CCMP to look at, kind of a celebration of hopefully wrapping that up and not having to look at it for a little bit. Because I know this committee has done incredible work to help put that together. And I'm sure you also don't really want to look at it in detail. You want to see the pretty picture, you want to see the layout of it, but don't worry about reading it. Because you already have many times.
Yeah. They asked for another month, so it's supposed to be, they were supposed to get it to us mid-February, like now, and so it'll be mid-March that they'll get it, but they also are gonna design a website for us and a logo for us.
Nice.
So, thank you, TNC. Yes, we're excited for the unveiling of so many things, but the CCMP, we have been going back and forth with them. I mean, they're a great company to work with, very communicative. But Ryan and I are over it. We have fun.
Y'all have done an amazing job. I mean, standing up a program, getting a CCMP written, that's great work. Can't wait to see it. The few pages y'all have shared so far are looking really, really good.
I mean, I can pull it up really quick if you want me to.
No, it's not.
I have that, yes, you have that.
I just was wondering, are y'all gonna do like a
We want to do a celebration type meeting where we get all of the committees together and do, I think we talked about a lunch. It'll probably, I think we did talk about March. I haven't planned it. Well, April, we already have the management council and the college board meeting, so it's like another demand from our program on them. So I was trying to make it not like on one of their off months, which is either March or May. So I'm more comfortable with like April, May timeline of when it's gonna be printed and ready, because I want to be able to give out copies to, especially the policy board and management council folks. So to be determined, but yes, we do want to do some sort of
Final celebration of it,
yes.
great work.
All right, and then the last thing I wanted to go over are just our announcements. We will be, SaskJ Bev will be at the Emerald Coast Boat Show and Springfield Founders Day event, March 2nd. We have a staff scientist position that closes today at midnight. So feel free to send that to anyone that you know is looking for a position. They have to apply like right now. But that closes at midnight today. And then again, just a reminder that March is Seagrass Awareness Month. Lisa's been working on some great efforts to kind of ramp up support for seagrass, a fraction for seagrass action, and then our Go Slow, Don't Mow sticker. So yeah, if you have any announcements, anyone online, please feel free to come off and let us know if there's any events that you'll be attending or meetings and things like that. John?
Sure, thanks. I have a couple announcements from the Aquatic Preserve side. We just got word that we are approved to move forward with mapping prop scars in St. Joe Bay and St. Andrews as a closeout for our NERDA prop scar restoration project. So in St. Joe, we'll get good before and after shot. And then in St. Andrews, it will update the amount of prop scars that we'll be restoring this summer with sea and shoreline. The also added benefit is we will be getting a brand new seagrass layer for St. Joe Bay and St. Andrews Bay, at least within the aquatic preserves. So that it's been a while since there's been an updated coverage layer. So we're excited about that as well. And we should have our prop scar year 2 monitoring report out probably by the end of this month. The NERDA TIG is a little more picky about when our reports go out, so we have to submit to them first before sending them out to everybody, but pretty excited to be sharing some of that data. We've seen some good recovery in some areas, but not so much in some other areas. There's a question about Map Direct. I'm sure when it comes out and is fully processed and everything, we'll be distributing it to everybody, especially to our partners at FWC, since they're sort of the keepers of the seagrass stuff. So we'll definitely make sure to make all that available, but we've been sort of waiting for approval for both bays. Originally, it might have only been one of the bays, so that's pretty awesome stuff from the aquatic preserve side. And I think that's it. So thanks.
Thanks. Becca?
Hey, everybody, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Hopefully my audio and everything will cooperate. So I just wanted to let everybody know on the team that I have accepted a new position within FWC, and I'm going to be leading up the Seagrass Integrated Mapping and Monitoring Program for FWRI, effective March 1st. So I'm very much looking forward to working with all of you guys in my new role, focusing on seagrass.
Yay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other announcements from folks?
Should we all tell Jen bye?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
No.
I mean, no, we don't want them to go, not, no, not tell them bye.
Hey, Lisa.
Ryan, I might just make a quick note that the Friends of St. Vincent National Wildlife Refuge had their meeting this past weekend. And we had a speaker that came down from Florida State, a woman named Sandra Brook, who's been leading up the effort to quantify the restoration of oysters in Apalachicola Bay. And there was some real shock from the community folks when she started talking about that things are not going as well as they had really hoped, that even with areas where they put down new hard material, they're getting variable results. And I think one of the things that was perhaps most interesting was there's a real asymmetry between the east portion and the west portion, and people really scratching their heads about what's going on between the two different parts of Apalachicola Bay, and whether or not there's a role in the future to be played by the commercial oyster growing groups, or whether or not you might be able to get some of the private dock holders involved, because there's a lot of individuals who are now raising oysters off their own docks. And if there was a way to start to take advantage of that as sources of either viable commercial spat or wild spat, there were a lot of good questions, and it was she's an individual that we might look at some point, getting her to make a presentation to this group. And again, she may be somebody you already know. Her name is Sandra Brook.
Yes. Thanks. Yeah, I know Matt, Janelle, some of the folks based over that way work closely with her.
We sure do. We sure do.
I do want to just say a big thank you to Jim. So when I first started this committee was really the only committee that existed beyond the policy board, and that was really, Jim was a great and has been a great leader and supporter, and I will very much miss him when he is gone in 3 days. So thank you very much, Jim, for all of your support.
You're welcome, thanks, and I really see this as the best investment the county is making with their restore funds, both in the short-term returns based on what y'all are already getting in terms of grants, but also long-term in terms of involvement of the entire community and the improvement in the watershed for both the watershed for both St. Joe and St. Andrew Bays. So y'all keep up the great work. I'll keep tuned in as well and plan to keep being involved in Gulf restoration at work.
Thank you, Jen.
Great, thanks, Jim. All right, with that, we will end our meeting. Thank you again for taking the time to join us today. Feel free to send emails, feedback on the different documents we talked about today, and we will see you in March. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend.